Hey, folks, thanks for stopping by. If you're not subscribed, I hope you will subscribe and tell your friends. We can keep doing this. I have some thoughts. A lot of them center around Senator Schumer. All right. There's reason to be critical of him. He is not a good communicator. I think his time has passed, and part of leadership is being able to communicate in the era in which you live. And we are in the era of Trump and Fox News. And again, I have repeatedly, with other support, called for Democrats to do daily briefings in the Capitol, paid for by the congressional Democratic offices or the steering committees, and you can get a room in the Capitol. I have suggested Pete Buttigieg. I don't know why this isn't happening, but the two people who can make it happen would be Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. It is not happening. And as I've said before, this is not something that should be done at the DNC because A, it's a hike, and the press is already in the House and Senate press galleries. So if it is a congressional function, even if it's for the minority, it is part of their beat and they will show up. And the permanent office space could be Chuck Schumer's or somebody else's hideaway office in the Capitol until they can find a permanent room. All right. I'm going to keep saying that and beating that drum. That said, I'm going to somewhat defend Chuck Schumer on the avoidance of a government shutdown. And here's why. Democrats have very few cards to play here. And I think winning the battle but losing the war is not something that we want to do. Right now, we know two things. What we do know is that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are intentionally tanking our economy, putting us all in peril, uh, doing things that will result in the death of a lot of Americans, older people, the elderly, the poor, the disabled children, veterans. We know that all these federal employees are being fired, including MAGA supporters. So the Trump Elon death and destruction is not going to pass over MAGA. I don't think there's anything that a government shutdown would do to make that better. What it would do is make voters blame Democrats. Voters would blame Democrats for everything bad that would be happening in this economy. Trump was able, with the help of Fox News and the help of Elon Musk and Vladimir Putin, was able to convince enough Americans that the Biden economy was horrible, when in fact, it was one of the best economies we've ever seen, certainly in my lifetime. Democrats failed to properly communicate that, for one thing. And it's inexplicable to me as a professional political communications person and strategist that this could happen. We know that communications is not the strong point of Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and Democrats right now. I don't know why, except I think they are personally threatened by giving somebody else that much fame, I guess, and a platform. And it's also a threat to 2028 presidential hopefuls, assuming we'll have elections. And that's why it's not happening. There simply is no other reason. So Democrats are unable to defend what they're doing. And I think we cannot afford that. Trump and Elon are going to destroy this economy. They are destroying this economy. And I don't think that Democrats should do anything that ensures they get the blame. And they would get the blame, even if it's wrong. And again, a big part of that is because they are not having daily press briefings on par with the White House press briefings. Same location, same person leading, and of course you bring in other people, other communicators. And it's such a wasted opportunity. Such a wasted opportunity, because the bimbo behind the lectern at the White House is terrible. and the press have all been kicked out. You've literally got the House and Senate press galleries with the press waiting there, and they're not doing it. That is why I think Democrats cannot afford to allow themselves to be blamed for a government shutdown, even if it's not their fault. It will be perceived as their fault. And literally everything. I mean, look what Trump is already doing, blaming everything on Biden, who gave us the best economy ever. This is what we're up against. So we have a chance here, unfortunately, because of death and destruction. There will be MAGA who will pull away from Trump. Now, does Trump care? No. And that's frightening a little in many ways, which we've talked about before. However, this will be blowback to the Republican House and Senate members. They're avoiding town halls, or they're having people dragged out, literally veterans dragged out, veterans who are losing their benefits. That's not something that I think Democrats can stop right now, to be honest. Make a lot of noise, but the way to stop this is to defeat them. All right. Make sure that it is the Republican members of Congress who are hearing about it back home, so that they can take measures to stop Trump and Elon Musk and Putin. Again, winning the battle but losing the war isn't going to help you, especially if you're not willing to really arm yourself with daily press briefings. I think this is a realistic take. I want to caveat this by saying I've been thinking about it. I'm not completely sold on this position, but I do think that it's important to weigh all the potential ramifications of every move or lack of movement that Democrats might do. And I don't think they have it in them to put forth the communications fight that it would take to explain their actions and to avoid blame for the economy. Um, so that might be a controversial take. I mean, there's no good, perfect solution here. There just isn't, unfortunately. But that's just kind of what I've been thinking about now, and I just don't think that our leaders are strong enough to withstand. They don't seem to be able to back up from a communications perspective what they're doing in terms of a legislative agenda or legislative moves, and that is sad. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that they're doing better than they are, because they're not. I have that same sinking feeling right now about Democrats not doing daily briefings, at a minimum, daily briefings in terms of fighting back, that they can't do this. And I've laid out how to pay for it. Remember, I worked on Capitol Hill for a long time. I kind of know how this goes. And I've had other friends weigh in and say, there's the policy and steering committees that could pay for a Pete Buttigieg to do this, and staff and crack staff to do it. You might not even need to do an assessment of the Democratic House and Senate offices and committees and leadership offices. Although that's one way to do it. Maybe do a combination of both. And yes, the steering committees have permanent rooms that they can get in the Capitol. And if not, somebody can give up their Senate hideaway room. I have this all covered because it's not hard. In fact, this is so incredibly easy to do. It is suspicious that they're not. And this is why I'm getting the same feeling that I did when we were waiting for Merrick Garland to do something. And we're told he's busy. He's dotting his I's and crossing his T's. And this isn't an episode of Law and Order where it's all taken care of in an hour. And this is how people supposedly on our side were talking to us. We're talking to people like me, who worked on Capitol Hill for a long time, has run campaigns, actually worked partly, part of what I did in communications for an oversight subcommittee, because every authorizing committee in the House has an oversight committee, which is where we do audits, which is why we don't need Elon Musk, but most people don't know that. Certainly MAGA doesn't know that. There's already a function in place to do audits of the various agencies and cut out waste and fraud. Or if something's outdated or it's duplicative or something, you can do that. And we did it. So the inability to communicate is problematic for the Democrats. And I said, to the point where now it is scary. I mean, hair on fire stuff. And that's why I have that same feeling when Merrick Garland was doing nothing. And then the January 6th committee got busy, and they were a year late. And then they were coming up with things that Merrick Garland wanted this information, and they're like, "You mean you don't have it yet?" He had done nothing. Adam Schiff had worked at DOJ, was stepping forward and saying, "I'm hearing they're doing nothing." And he even publicly said, "Mr. AG, I hope you're not waiting for the January 6th committee to do their work, because that's not how this is supposed to go." And then, as it turned out, Merrick Garland is now the reason we're in this situation we're in. I have that same fear, sense of foreboding, like looking down over the cliff with Democrats not doing daily briefings, as I did when Merrick Garland simply wasn't doing his job. So, given all that, I don't think the Democrats can withstand the communications blowback that they would get. They would be blamed for the government shutdown. They would be blamed for everything that happens. And that's the truth. Um, there might be other answers, but that's just kind of my feeling about things this morning. It is depressing. It is distressing. I wish it weren't so, but um, I'm kind of in that camp of be very, very cautious in terms of how bold they can be, because they don't know how to win. I don't even want to say they don't know how to win the communications war. They aren't even fighting. They aren't even suiting up. They aren't even putting on their armor, let alone pulling out their weapons. And that is very, very concerning. Okay. You might disagree with me. And again, I can certainly change my mind on this, but this is kind of what I'm thinking right now, because it's been alarming how inept they've been in terms of communications, to the point where you know that some of it is intentional, or they aren't doing it for other reasons. Again, it's egos. It's egos. And yeah, if Pete Buttigieg was the guy up there every day, he probably would end up being the front runner for 2028. We know he's not going to run for office in Michigan now. He's announced that. We see Tim Walz clearly running. I think Shapiro will run. Rahm Emanuel, he's running, but I don't think there's anything. I hope Governor Whitmer runs. Gavin Newsom is blowing it by, playing footsies and hosting Steve Bannon and others on his podcast. He's going far right MAGA. I don't know if that he's both sidesing or who's advising him, but whoa. And we have Chris Murphy. Wow, he's a shining star in the Senate. So I think he'd be running. We've got the governor of Illinois, Prizik. I can't pronounce his last name, and I'm originally from Illinois. But I do think that there's some bright lights out there, and they may have to fill the void, if possible, that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are leaving, because it is distressing. Uh, and so, and again, what we look for in candidates is going to be different now. And I'm going to talk about that in a separate video. I think I'll do some writing on that, how the landscape has changed in terms of, what we look for now in our leaders or our candidates. And 2028 is a long way off, and Trump is going to probably try and run for a third term. But right now, in terms of what's happening on Capitol Hill, I don't want to say it's a path of least resistance, but if you don't have the communications chops or the willingness to defend what you're doing, Democrats would simply get blamed. And right now, Trump and Elon Musk have been taking hits because of what they're doing to the economy. And I don't think the Democrats should do anything to give Trump ammunition to blame the economy on Democrats, the government shutdown. So I hope that makes sense. Thanks.